Hey everybody, welcome back to Be Like Christ. We're talking about Matthew chapter 23 in 5 minutes. If you want the handout that you're about to see up on the screen in the background, you can download the full file on our website. There's a link down below. There's also a link to our Patreon account. You can support the creation of resources, free resources like this, so people can understand the Bible better. Matthew chapter 23, when did the events of this chapter take place? Well, this would have been during the last week of Jesus' life. So this is during his ministry, which would have been somewhere between 26 and 31 AD. His ministry is coming to a close, and this is the last week before he is crucified. In this chapter, we're not introduced to a ton of new characters. The three main characters that I have listed here are Jesus, and then his disciples or his students, and then the scribes, the Pharisees, and the Sadducees, who are the usual enemies of Jesus, and they're trying to find a way to trick him, like usual. And we're going to see here that Jesus is pretty upset with the way that they've been behaving. Where did the events of chapter 23 take place? Well, they all happened in and around the city of Jerusalem, because Jerusalem is where Jesus is going to be killed. As far as our outline, not a whole lot of sections here. The first section is really big. This is verses 1 through 36. And I've entitled it, Woe to You, Scribes and Pharisees. Jesus pronounces a series of woes condemning the Jewish religious leaders for their hypocrisy, for their bad teaching, their bad guidance of the people. He rebuked them for craving the praise and the honor of men. He rebuked them for laying heavy spiritual religious burdens on people that they couldn't bear. He said, Woe to you, for you shut up the kingdom of heaven in people's faces. Woe to you, blind guides, because you misguide the proper thinking of those who you're teaching. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you clean the outside of the cup and the plate, but inside they are full of greed and self-indulgence. You look good on the outside, but on the inside you're corrupt and you're dirty. Woe to you, for you are like whitewashed tombs, which outwardly appear beautiful, but within are full of dead people's bones and all uncleanliness. Woe to you, because you celebrate the prophets, and you honor the prophets, who your ancestors, your fathers, killed. But you, in your actions, affirm that you are just like your ancestors who did those terrible things. Jesus called them serpents and a brood of vipers, and he told them that they would not escape the fire of hell. So in this first section, Jesus' anger is on display, but his compassion, his sadness that his anger has to be poured out is on display. In the conclusion of this chapter, in verses 37 through 39, Jesus mourns over the city of Jerusalem. Jesus loved the citizens of Jerusalem, and he loved the city. He loved all that God had done in and around that area, and he didn't want to see the Jews who lived there be punished. But he knew that God was a God of justice, and he would not allow their rejection of him to go without punishment. God has a holy and righteous anger against sin. So how does this chapter fit into the big picture, big story of the Bible? Well, much of the Old Testament is a story about how God had patience with the Jews. He gave them chances again and again and again to come back to him and to repent. Books like Hosea, Isaiah, and Ezra record God's longing for the Jews to turn away from these sins that he knows are never going to satisfy them and to turn to him. And as we just mentioned, God is a God of love, and he loved the Jews. However, his justice won't allow sins to go unpunished. And at the end of time, all evildoers, not just the Jews, but all people who persist in their sins are going to have to face God's judgment. I think one good application that we can take from this chapter is that we need to be very careful before we accuse God of being unfair or harsh in his judgments. A favorite topic of unbelievers and critics of the scriptures is to point back to the Old Testament and to look at all these times where God had to pour out his judgment on people, and to then accuse God of being mean or angry all the time, or just being constantly bloodthirsty. Well, if you read the Old Testament and you see how patient God was with the Jews, you'll realize that that isn't the case at all. Yes, God will punish evil, but if anything, the Old Testament proves to us that God is slow to anger and extremely patient. Judgment is usually preceded by a period of extended patience.